Good morning, class. So today we're going to talk about how to work with files and data streams. This is all taken from chapter 21. I'm hopeful that you've read it. It's particularly challenging, but it is a lot of fun because we'll be writing to text files and also reading from text files. So hope you enjoy it. The first thing that you need when you are working with a file stream is you need to create a reference to the file stream. So if you see right here, I have our usual module. We'll be working inside of the the console application. And so up here on top of the modules is where you're going to need to create your reference to the I/O. And so we use our usual keyword imports system and .io. And then that's going to let us use the the I/O methods that we will need to use in our code. Okay, so having done that, clean up the code a bit, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of this stuff. So there's 4 common methods that we use in the directory path, and I'll just go ahead and write them here. The first one is called exists. Let's see if I can see. And then of course here you have to put your path. I'm going to comment these out because they won't work until I have them properly coded. So I just want to show you the actual way that they're written. So I'll give you a moment and then I'll explain. This will be the 3 that we use the most. So the first one's an exists, and it's going to check and see if the path exists. The second one is a create directory. This one will create the directory, and they're pretty self-explanatory. And then of course delete deletes. So let's go ahead and make some code that'll do something. So we need to dim, we need to declare, and so I'll just use one. And I'm just taking this directly right out of the slides. So if you have the slides, you can follow along, and you should practice with this stuff too. Here they're going to use the CVB 2015 files. I might do something a little bit different. Now what I like to do when I'm working with I/O files is I like to create mine I like to create them in a different directory. A lot of times you'll see people that want to throw them directly in the C directory, but the problem with that is that oftentimes you're in an application it needs special permissions, and so you can run into some problems with that. So I'm just going to use this one here. I like to use users, and I like to use public. And if you do this one doesn't require any special permissions because it's public. Okay, so now we'll just come down a line and we'll do a little if. Again, like I said, I'm taking these directly from the slides. Oops, sorry, I have a tricky. And I'll explain all this here in a minute. How am I supposed to do this one? Okay. So what I did was I declared a variable called dir, and you could have named this anything, it's just a variable, as a string. It's going to have the path where I'm actually going to have my my file. So I said I like to use the public directory because it doesn't require any special permissions. I'm going to throw an if not statement in here. So if not, meaning if this directory does not exist, then I want to create it. That's all it means. It's that simple. So let's see what happens here. And that's it. I don't have any feedback to the console, so it stops right there. I just looked in my directory and there was nothing there because I forgot to put something there. So let's put something in there. I'm just going to call this, I'll call it temp. A lot of times when I'm writing stuff, I'll call things temp. And so we're just going to use a text file. So this will be temp text. Let's rerun this. Let's see what happens. Okay, so what happened here is it created a folder, a file called temp text, and need to take a look at it. Be right back. So with this piece of code here, create directory, what I've got is that this is not creating a file; it's creating a directory. So I took off the .txt and I just created the temp. So what this did, it created a folder called temp in this directory. It looked to see if it existed. It didn't exist, so then it created it. And if I pull this over, you can take a look and see it's right here. And that was created when this ran. Okay, so that's how you create a directory. And now we'll go to the part where I thought I was at. We're going to go ahead and create a file. So we created the directory. Now let's go ahead and create a file. So let's comment this a little bit here first of all. So, okay, this is going to be create a directory, and down here we're going to say create a file. Okay, so I'm going to type a little bit, and then I'll be right back. So what I did was I wrote this piece of code, and I'll just go through it real quick. I created a variable called path, and I said, okay, I'm going to declare path as a string, just as I did above, and it's going to equal directory, the variable dr, which was right up here, dr, this string. I'm going to concatenate it with this one, which is something.txt, which is going to be the file. This time I'm creating a file. So here I'm saying, if not, file exists. So it's going to check, it's going to see, does this exist? And it's the entire piece. So it's if the this file, see this whole file right here all the way through temp, and something.txt, if it does not exist, then create it. That's all it's saying. So we can run this. Runs. We can take a look at our directory. Here's the temp directory that was made in this block of code. If we look inside of it, here's our text file that was created right here. And that's it. Now there's nothing in the text file, but we'll figure out how to work with that here in a minute. So I need to go over just a couple of different types of files, and one of them is called the text file, which we created here. And in this file we can contain string. So that's what text is string characters. The fields in each record are typically delimited by special characters like a tab or pipe characters. And the records are typically delimited by a new line of characters. So usually, like I said, if you're looking at one line in a text file, that is going to be separated by something. They call that delimited. So a lot of times you'll see like a CSV file that's comma separated values, or or tab separated values. There's even space separated values. And then the next line in a text file usually means it's a brand new record. Okay, so the other type of file is a binary file, and a binary file contains a variety of data types, and the binary file is used to transfer binary data. So I'm going to go over a few of the data streams that we use, and I'm going to comment these out until we need them. One is called a file stream, which is the one we will mainly be using. The other one is called stream reader, we will also be using, and the other one is called stream writer. These are the main ones that we'll be using. There's two more, which I don't think we'll use. One is binary reader, and the other is, of course, you can guess, is binary writer. So the syntax for creating a binary file stream, and I'll do that right now, is to do this. New those. Give me one moment. We fix this. Just like we did with our other items where we had to declare them as a variable, dim directory, dim path. We need to do the same with our file stream. So let's go ahead and do that. Dim file stream as file stream. And let's we'll do this one too. Do stream. And there's so many different ways you could do this. Like, actually, I like using less characters. So let's just do FS for file stream and SW for stream writer. Okay, so we have that, and now file stream. Oops, not that one. This is going to equal new file stream, and now we'll set our path. We already know what our path is, so we can use the word path because we set it up above. Okay, so I'm going to write some code and I'll be right back. Alright, so this is the line of code that I usually use when I'm working with my file stream. So I have file stream equal new file stream, and I list the path. Now here you could type out this whole thing if you didn't already have it, but since we declared it up here, the directory, and then the path here, which is a concatenation of the directory plus something.txt, all of that is encompassed in the word path here. You could add these two together and just throw them here as a large string, but since we already declared ours, we can just write the word path, since path has all that in it as a variable. Okay, so you have to have the comma and then mode as file mode, and open or create. And then here I have a file as a access.write, because that's how we'll be using this. Okay, so that's our file stream, where we now are prepared to do more with it. I'll write a little bit of code and we'll be right back. I added the line of code right here on line 36. So I took my variable SW, which is going to be the stream writer, and I said, okay, we're creating a new stream writer, and it's going to be streaming FS, which is this variable. So this tells us the path and everything that all the properties that we need to know about the file stream. So we're going to be writing to this file stream. We created the file stream, now we created the stream writer. Okay, on line 38 and 39 right here, what I did was I created the command that sets this to the end of the file. So this is the stream writer. We'll be writing to the file. That's what this means. And we're going to go to the very end of the file. So this is the code that's going to point to the end of the file. So when we have our text file, if our text file had information in it, let's just pull this up again. So here's our text file. If there was data in here, then this is just saying we're going to go to the very end and we're going to add to that data. That's all that's saying. So I usually do that so that I can retain whatever data was in the stream file. So on line 41 and 42, I say what I'm actually going to write. So we created our stream writer, we set up the stream, we're going to write to the end of the file, and now on line 41, 42, we're actually going to write to. We're going to list what we're going to write to the file. So in our case, we're going to write hello world. A few more things that we need to do now. We actually have to tell it when we want to update it, so that's a different thing. And we use the keyword flush for that one. After we're done with everything, we have to close things down. So we'll just go through this. Okay. So what we did here was we said, okay, flush just means update the file, and then we have to close the stream writer, and then we also have to close the file stream. These are all required fields. Okay, so I think we have everything done. I don't know if this will work or not. I haven't tested it, so let's run it. Done. Now let's check our file and see what happened. And there it is. Hello world. So we successfully created a directory, we created a file, and we wrote to the file. So that was creating a file. There's different commands that we can use in the file stream, and I'll just go ahead and list those. I'm going to list them down here. I'll comment them out. So there's also append. These are just the different common commands. I already showed you how to create. There's create new, open, which of course we've seen. Open or create, which I think we also have seen, and truncate. So these ones here are the different commands that can be used right up in here whenever we do this part here. When we're working with our file stream, we can append, create, open or create, truncate. That's all done right here on line 34. These are the different options. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to read the file. So in this section here, we created a directory, we wrote to the directory, we created a file in the directory, we wrote to it with this part right here. Now we need to learn how to read from a directory. So that's going to be the next thing we do. What I did was I went ahead and wrote this chunk of code right here, which was the stream reader, and this was to pull information out of the file. So I'm just going to run through the code. I'll run through the code real quick. So I just called this one FS for file stream and _R for reader. And I did that because I didn't want to confuse line 58 with line 34 up here. So for example, we have a file stream here, and I didn't want it to be confused because I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently. With this file stream, we're going to be writing, and with this file stream, we're going to be reading, so I needed to make them different. So I just, just for right now, I just underscored it with an R, so file stream reader. The next thing is I also need to create the actual reader, so the stream reader. And so I just like I did above for the stream writer, I just declared it as SR, and except for the SR is going to be using the stream reader FS _R. I'll be using this one. So up here, the stream reader. Let me close this up a little bit. So up here we just had our stream writer, but here we have to access the stream file, the file stream in order to run things. So that's all. That's all that's happening here. Here I declared S because I'm going to be using S as my output. The next thing is I need to tell the pointer where to start. So I'm telling it I'm telling the stream reader to start at the beginning of the file, and that's where you see this begin right here. So basestream.seek, and I'm saying at the beginning. The next thing is I have to create a loop to loop through all the different items. There might be a whole bunch of different lines in the file stream. So I want to loop through until there's no more. And so I just used a little do while loop. You could use different types of loops or whatever you want, just something that iterates through the file, the stream. And every time it loops through, every time it iterates, I'm collecting S, and I'm saying set S equal to whatever is in the file stream. Now you probably want to do a plus here, so that way it's always being added. And then I'm closing the stream reader, and I should also close the stream writer. So, okay, so I close the stream reader and the file stream, and then I write to the console. So let's see what happens. And there it is. So if I open up the actual file, which I need to refresh it, let's go back here. Then you can see this is what the file looks like. This is how many times I've run it. It just keeps adding it every time I run it. And then I'm reading this file and I'm outputting to the console. And so there you have it. In this section here, I'm creating it, creating the directory, creating the file, and let's go ahead and separate this out a little bit. Then down here, I'm writing to the file. So we wrote to the file, and I listed the different options that you can do. And then in this section here, I'm reading from the file. So here I'm opening the file, and I'm reading from the file to see what's in it. And I'm also writing to the console. I don't need to write to the console, but I do it anyways just to see what's going on. And writing to the console is just right here. I'm writing to the console, and I'm passing the variable s. S is just incrementing whatever information it's pulling from the stream reader. The last thing I want to talk about is the try-catch statements that we can use. And I use try-catch statements a lot in my coding. In fact, I hardly program at all without using a try-catch statement. And all a try-catch statement says is we want to try and run some code. And if that code fails, if there's something wrong, then we don't want our program to just explode and have some weird error message. We want to catch the exception and output it and say, hey, so this is what's going on here. And so I'll show you how to do that, and I'm gonna write a little bit of code, and then I'll explain it as I throw in a try-catch statement. So one moment. Okay, so I went ahead and I implemented a try-catch statement just in the file stream reader. I didn't do anything up here, but normally you would do it for pretty much anything you're going to run. So the example in the stream reader is right here after the dotted line, and you can see the entire syntax. Typically, we don't put our dims, our declared variables inside the try-catch, so I put it outside. And the try, again, is whatever we're going to do. We're going to run some kind of code. We're going to see what happens. But if there's a failure, something weird happens, we want to stop it. We don't want the system to blow up. And we want to catch the exception, and we want to output the exception, and then we want to close anything that might be opened. In this case, we're going to try and this is just our reader, so we're going to try and open up the stream reader. We're going to point it to the end of the reader. We're going to loop through the reader, and we're going to be collecting whatever's inside the reader into the variable s, which is a string. We're going to create a new line every time, so for readability. Then we're going to close the stream reader. We're going to close the file stream. We're going to write to the console. We're going to pause the console. If anything fails for whatever reason, it's going to break, jump down to the catch statement, and then the console will write the message if something's wrong. And then after that, this is what's called a finally statement. Then we're going to look at the file stream reader, and if it's open, then we're going to close it. That's all this means, this part right here. Finally statements are really important because if we have something open, usually it's not a text file. Usually it's going to be something along the lines of a database connection. So we're talking to a database, we have the connection open, something blows up. We don't want the database to just sit there left open and just hanging. So we want to close it. So let's say this was talking to a database and something went wrong. The exception would be caught here. We would output a message, and then the finally would close the database connection if it was open. In this case, we're doing a file stream. And that is it. That is the code. So clean it up a little bit. And so what I added to the code was what you're seeing highlighted: the try, and then at the end of whatever we're trying to do, the catch with EX as an exception. EX is not a reserved keyword. This could be anything. You could write, just E if you wanted to. And then we're writing to the console. At the end here, we'll use message. We want whatever the exception message is. We want to output that. Then followed by a finally, where we check to see if anything's open and close it. And then we have to end the try. So try, catch, finally, and try. Those are your reserved keywords for making the try-catch statement work. And there it runs and pulls everything out. There's no errors, no issues. If there had been an error, then the console would tell us that there was an error. That's it. Okay, so there's a few other things in the slides that that you might want to look at, and also in the chapter. some different common methods for the stream writer, such as write line. I think that's the only other thing that was added. Some common methods for the stream reader class. We already used the peek keyword, as you can see there in line 72, and that returns the next available character in the input stream without advancing to the next position, so that's really important. There's also a read line, and read to end, and a close. Again, you can read about those in the book. Sometimes we use them, sometimes we don't. I have found that what I demonstrated here is usually all I need to get what I need to get done when writing to the input-output. But you might want to use some of these other methods. Let's see, is there anything else? Nope, I think that covers this this chapter. Of course, the chapter is more in depth. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. And but this example of code that I listed right here, so the function of creating a directory, creating a file right here, of creating a stream writer right here, and creating a stream reader with a try-catch statement right here, is all you need to get rolling. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and happy coding.